Hello, I'm Mark Elliott and welcome to Imaging and Machine Vision Europe and one of our Visionaries webcasts. Well, we've done what we said on the tin today and lined up three terrific candidates to debate our topic, which, as you know, is focused on building a business case for machine vision, particularly how to quantify ROI and also to think about how to overcome implementation challenges. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our three speakers, and then we're going to give them some time to do a quick presentation just to introduce themselves. Then we're going to move on to the debate. So first off, we have Frederick Schonenberg, who is Director of Growth at FRAMOS. Then we have Mark Williamson, a machine vision business consultant. And finally, and last but not least, Paul Wilson, who is the CEO of Scorpion Vision. Thank you to you all for joining us today. First off, Frederick, would you like to talk us through your presentation so that you can introduce yourself? Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Welcome, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I'm with FRAMOS, a global vision company providing solutions starting from the image sensor all the way to full systems. I would like to present in a nutshell, essentially, what we have to offer, who I am, and what our core products are. So just sort of 3 slides that hopefully sort of spark your interest in what we do and how we work. FRAMOS is still a sort of a family-owned business. We were founded more than 40 years ago. Very global footprint these days. Our headquarters in Munich, in Germany, but entire production and manufacturing facility in Croatia, also with our engineering there, but then also very strong sales and support offices in Italy, Canada, and USA. These days, we are a little more than 180 employees worldwide, and I'm very proud of the sort of the mix of different nations we have among the employees, with 17 different nations present. I am personally a person with a technical background. I'm very, very passionate about imaging. A little more than 15 years of experience, hands-on experience of developing systems myself, but also supporting customers in all kinds of different applications. I am personally driven by the belief that especially embedded vision systems, embedded vision technology will really help enable a better future for all of us. So that's the strong belief of myself, but also of my peers here in FRAMOS. In a nutshell, the product portfolio that we carry and that hopefully you will be able to memorize. We start from image sensors, so we are a very strong partner of Sony and helping support our customers designing in image sensors into their solutions. We also carry a lineup of 3D depth sensing cameras based on the Intel RealSense technology. We have lately seen a huge success for optical sensor modules, so embedded vision modules that are able to be integrated in all kinds of devices. And then also what we've done more historically is strobe controllers, so precise controlled illumination that are required in also very different machine vision applications. This is essentially the portfolio with which we are trying to support our customers. And with that, back to you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Hi there, everybody. Yeah, so I'm Mark Williamson. I've been in the industry for over 35 years, started in 1989. And worked for a company called Datacell, where we actually started when vision systems were £30,000 just to grab an image. It was expensive stuff back then. So there needed to be a real cost justification at that level to make it. Now, things have come on a long, long way. So I'm currently chairman of the VDMA, which is a European trade association for machine vision. and I've been past chairman of the UK Industrial Vision Association and chairman of Automate UK, which is the umbrella of UK IVA. I founded what is now STEM Imaging back in 2019, and I stepped down from that in February this year. So I'm having a gap year at the moment. So I'm enjoying lots of travel. In my time at Stemmer, when we were sold to Stemmer, when I sold to Stemmer, I also got involved in product strategy and marketing strategy at Stemmer at group level. So I had lots of experience in helping companies prove that vision, justifying how vision is going to help them, how they implement it, and ensure that they get a successful return on their investment and a successful outcome. So I'm still sort of involved a little bit, going to Germany next week for a VDMA summit, but I'll be back more involved in the UK work from March next year. So that's a little bit about me. So I look forward to having some good discussions with these guys. Cheers.
Thank you, Mark. £30,000, that's quite an eye-watering amount, isn't it, really? It shows, as you say, a lot has changed. Next up, Paul, who's the CEO of Scorpio Vision. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself and what Scorpio Vision is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And recognition of Mark's 35 years is obviously an awful lot older than me. So I've been in the industry for 20 years. So yeah, 20 years, that doesn't seem like it. It's been 20 years of very interesting technology and in a fast-moving environment, really. So I founded Scorpion Vision back in 2004, and we've come a long way. We see ourselves as machine vision specialists in the industry, and our mission is to help our customers. We don't make the assumption that when the customer comes to us that they know everything or that they don't know anything. We're there to help, and I think one of the key things about our business is that people like us because we have good customer service, and that's a key part of what our business is doing is good customer service. And this is what we do. We're the whole thing, really. There are two streams to the business. One is in selling components, machine vision components. We sell everything from cameras to lenses to interface boards, and that's been a growing business for us for many years. And on the other side of the business, we are also a machine vision integrator. And so obviously the expertise we've built of integrating vision systems helps us in terms of the sales and support that we offer to our customers who are buying components from us. So I think it's quite a nice combination there for the business. So it works really well for us. We've had lots of really interesting projects over the years. We specialize in 3D with AI. That's a big thing for us these days. Many systems are being developed with neural networks behind them. It's an area that many people don't really understand. They call it AI. They think can do absolutely anything. But actually, when it comes down to it, AI is like the sort of cherry on the cake, really. Actually, the good old-fashioned factory automation technology is still very relevant, and it never will be replaced. It'll just get better. And our projects have led us to some really good awards. So we've won some really nice awards. So I just wanted to sort of say that we're recognised for the work we've done within the industry. We're UK based. We have quite a few projects abroad, South America, North America, mainly. Have something in China as well, but primarily we're UK based. And that's me. Thanks, Mark.
Paul, thank you. Right, okay, so we're on to the main meat of the meal today. And the format for this is that we have obviously two kind of core areas to discuss today, one about return on investment, the other about implementation challenges. We're going to tackle ROI first, because obviously without that kind of argument being won, a lot of these systems won't go in the first place. If anybody wants to ask a question that's watching, please just tap it into the box you can see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to get to that. But without further ado, I'm going to start on the ROI section. And I wanted to start with a very broad general question for you to kick off. And that is, could you define broadly but briefly what you think the key financial benefits that companies can and should expect from machine vision? So how would you summarize an answer to that broad question. Paul, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I'll make the assumption that that's actually a question that's directed at manufacturing. And of course, the headline is that it can dramatically improve margin. And how does it do that? In a number of ways, to do with quality control, producing better quality products. Prices can be improved, reduce costs by a reduction in labor, increased throughput with no reduction in quality, reduction of waste. And it also has an impact on infrastructure overheads. Obviously, the less people you have employed, that has a big impact on the overheads. And then, of course, there's environmental benefits, which can lead to financial benefits. And that, I think that sort of sums it up, really. I don't know if anybody else has got any contribution there.
That's a pretty good list. Mark, Frederick, anything to add or kind of counter on that?
Yeah, so I think there's. I think it comes down to sector. What's return on investment in medical? If you have the wrong stuff in there, someone can die. That's not financially, but there could be financially the outcomes of it. So different areas have different levels of return. There's also, I would say, that in factory automation, there's two areas that vision comes in. We naturally go to quality control, okay? And quality control is, yes, inspecting products. If you've got a problem, then machine vision can remove that. If you have to inspect a product because your manufacturing process is not reliable, then you can save money and save manpower, absolutely. But on the other side, you can improve things. So for instance, we have a customer that does bacon slicing, and the vision system is the control system. So it adjusts the thickness of the meat because of the fat, the lean, and the size of the cut changes. And if you buy a pack that has 8 slices and it's 400 grams, you don't want to give away 410, 420 grams, but you can't do 7 slices. So there, the return investment is the process. So you have a feedback process. And I think there's 2 areas there where vision gets used in. Does it improve the process, or does it actually prevent bad products from going out?
Frederick.
Yes, so I fundamentally agree with all what was said so far, but I would like to add this additional dimension that also I think Paul already teased a little bit, which is there are more and more use cases where vision is used outside of classical manufacturing. Traditionally, machine vision, what people associate this with is quality control, all sorts of inspection tasks during a manufacturing process. However, I think what we've lately seen really in the last 5 to 10 years with a steep growth curve is something one may call device vision, where a camera or often a system of different cameras is integrated into some sort of a device. Think of an autonomous mobile robot, for instance. And because of this additional technology, the device can then do things that previously it couldn't do. For instance, obstacle avoidance or autonomous navigation. And with that, you are essentially radically rethinking the business model of your company often. And that's also what we see here, that not only vision can help to optimize existing processes, but it actually enables complete new revenue streams, which of course is hard to quantify upfront. But this is what the reality is, that really people are trying out new stuff to see if actually they can drive enough value to make it a profitable business. And vision is really at the forefront there as a key enablement technology.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a slightly unfair question that you might have answered in your response there, Frederick. But when somebody thinks about this kind of type of implementation project, should there be, or is there, a general margin improvement number that you would think about that would, typically be seen? Any thoughts?
It's really hard to sort of pinpoint to a specific number, but I think, yes, there are some scaling factors involved. Typically, I mean, any camera system, any vision system comes with a certain cost of goods sold, to say. There is a bill of material, there is some integration cost, and yet the cost of this vision subsystem needs to be in relation to the cost of the overall device. So if the device itself is, you want to sell at $100 and the vision subsystem alone would add another $50, then usually it's hard to justify this additional cost. Then the vision system would really need to add a lot of additional value to the system to justify that there is a 50% price increase. So there's the one perspective of looking at this is that there needs to be a certain ratio between at what price you're selling your device and what margin you have on the bill of material for the vision subsystem. But also what we've seen lately that sort of the space for adding a vision subsystem to the product becomes much bigger once also the customer changes their business model, and instead of selling the device is providing a subscription model where they generate recurring revenue by sort of renting out the device or having maybe even a software as a service layer on top. And then they can amortize the additional cost of the vision subsystem over a certain period of time. And that's also something where we see that our customers are quite happily experimenting with these new kinds of business models.
So, Paul, Mark, any thoughts about whether anybody should approach this with a number in mind or not, or is it too diverse?
I think not necessarily a number in mind, but I think don't just think of the hardware. You know, cost of hardware has been coming down massively. The biggest cost of any vision system is the integration, the knowledge, the training, the setup. That's where the cost. So yes, you can buy a piece of a vision system for half the price of another one, but if that other one can get you there quicker and you're working with someone that understands and can deliver you a reliable system. I've seen so many people not understand, put a vision system in, and it doesn't work, it gets turned off. Then you don't get any return in investment. I personally don't think you need to look for a number. I think the number basically, does it solve a problem that exists that causes you issues? That's the number. And it depends where it is, what the volumes are, whatever. You could have a very low volume, but a big cost of failure versus very, very small, but tens of thousands of products a year being manufactured. That very small percentage margin can be a big number.
Yeah. And Paul, from your perspective, any clients come to you with a kind of number in mind, or are they kind of interested in, taking a slightly optimistic view on that?
I don't know if they do. I mean, sometimes, people don't tell you you ask them what their budget is, and they say something, and it means nothing because you don't understand what the problem is. You don't know really what it does for them either. So you could be solving a problem that saves them millions of pounds a year. So I'd rather not commit to giving them a cost for something until I know that. But it can be high risk for the customer. So we like to try and reduce the risk. Obviously, if it's high risk for the customer, it's also high risk for us. So we do try and ask for, if it's a complex application, which most of them are, we ask for a little bit of R&D up front, and that's not much of a capital outlay for them, and it's good for us to get the teeth into it to really get to the bottom of what it is that we need to solve, and then the cost comes out as to what it's likely to be, and I think it's easier for the customer to understand that then once you've done that work.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So, I mean, thinking about making the case for implementing machine vision, are there sort of things that you absolutely have to nail before you even start getting involved in the process of discovery, or are there things that, or is it entirely a journey you go on when you've found your partner to work through that? Paul, let's start with you again.
Making the case. I think it's quite a big area because who is it has to make the case for a start? Is it somebody on the shop floor? Has he got any influence? Is it the managing director? All he can see is that there's an awful lot of waste going out. I think it depends on the sort of where that person exists within the organization. I think at the end of the day, somebody's got to get the head around what the problem is and how it can be solved. And I come back to my point about R&D. I think it's a great idea to do a little bit of trial work beforehand. Then they can make the case. If they can get something through in a small budget that they don't have to go to a higher financial director for, spend a little bit of money on R&D to figure out, is there a problem that can be solved with machine vision? And what will the wins be out of that?
Yeah, that's a terrific steer that hopefully the audience will take away. And Frederick, what were your thoughts on this?
I agree with what Paul said. I think a thorough understanding of the problem statement is key to start with a good discovery phase to lock down the details of the problem. But there needs to be some sort of problem understanding and awareness. And as Paul said, it depends a little bit on the company, also how they run the decision-making process. Is it the worker on the shop floor? Is it the managing director? We get to speak to all kinds of different people. It seems every company runs this a little bit differently, but usually I think typically the success is highest if there is some sort of champion, somebody who's owning that project, owning this problem statement. This helps a lot. And then again, looking at this other side, when we sort of leave the manufacturing floor and we more look into novel use cases, novel business ideas, then typically there it's less clear. It's more an experimental approach where you don't necessarily have a clear technical problem statement. Typically, what is important there that there is a good understanding of what the end user that will ultimately benefit from adding vision to whatever the device is, what that end user, how they will benefit from it. So also there, it's also a sort of research on what the problem statement actually is that needs to be done, but it's in a different domain. It's no longer on a shop floor. It's more than doing maybe custom interviews or proof of concepts. But also there, what is key is to understand what the problem is that should be addressed with machine vision.
Yeah. So, and Mark, I mean, thinking about your kind of experience of seeing this, I'm imagining in many, many different scenarios. Any sort of examples of where people have got it right or wrong, or any kind of further thoughts on how to get that right?
The thing is most manufacturing companies they have a problem, they come to machine vision and they will come with a defect part and they will show you the one defect part and say, can you inspect that? Okay. That's massively different than having a system that is reliable on all the variations of those parts. So actually VDMA created a standard called the VDMA 2632, which firstly, it takes you through the process. So it defines a requirement specification. The questions that the customer should be asking the machine vision company, like Paul's company, of, okay, this is my specification. It makes them think about, actually, it's not one part. Can I have a set of samples, especially around the decision boundaries of where something's good and bad? We need lots of parts around there. We need a set. And you need to create a set that when it gets to the sign-off, you use that set to prove the system worked. Because what I've seen so many times, you get the part, you create an inspection system, you put it on, a part that comes through is slightly different, and the customer says, well, that's a defect, or it says something, oh, that one's all right because it's not as bad. And that's so there needs to be a clear understanding on all parts. So there is a standard that helps that. Certainly in Germany, a lot of integrators use that. I think not so much wider than that. But from what Paul said, that's great. You need to have time to spend and do some R&D, but you've then committed to someone. You need to have how are you going to interview the integrators? What questions are you going to ask? And also the integrators should be asking the end user, because quite often they don't want to put their own money. The biggest cost for the end user is to spend their time defining really what the problem is.
Yeah. And do you find that customers are coming into those discussions with that awareness of the journey ahead of them, or are they spending the time really thinking this through? I mean, we'll come on to implementation in due course, but no.
Okay. I think the educated customer is quite rare, actually. No disrespect to anybody.
Yeah. No, I guess for a lot of organizations, this is a central kind of conundrum, isn't it? How do you prepare for the, creating the business case? What does the journey ahead look like? And you kind of almost need to understand that before you can justify the business decision, before you've even sort of spent much money on it. And I mean, just thinking about kind of timelines on some of this, I guess it entirely depends on the scale of the project and the type of project. But is there a kind of a rough benchmark that people should be thinking about? When do you need to start doing the analysis? How long will the scoping take? What is there a generalization one could form around this? Presumably an in-year kind of process to kind of scope, deliver, implement is completely unrealistic in most scenarios. But what are the boundaries of this, the long and the short? Is there a strong view?
I think it depends. I personally don't think there is if you're just trying to identify, is there a dot on something, that's very easy. That you could say that's relatively simple. If there's something that's or a code read or a pattern match or something like that that's very consistent, then it's not long. But the reality is customers, once they see that, they then start to think, and then so again, a lot of these systems are, if you choose a good partner, that's a partner for life. It's like your wife, isn't it? If you find a good system integrator partner and you have problems, once you've got that trust built up, then you can iteratively make improvements and go through. Don't think this is a one-shot, bang, put it in, and I'm never going to touch it again. That does happen. Don't get me wrong. And if it's a simple application, yes, that can happen. But normally it's more than that. And we've got projects at hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, projects where it can be a few days of someone going in, but the customer needs to understand, if that's the case, there's no money in it to do the support at the end of it. So you have to educate them what kind of support package you're providing and what their expectations are, and that you are there to help them afterwards, but don't think you're getting free support to come to site every week when the sun comes out through a skylight and it stops working, which is a very common issue that happens. So again, it's expectations. That's the big thing, expectations.
Okay. Frederick?
I think I mentioned before that we've seen biggest successes whenever there was a clear champion, whenever there's a counterpart somewhere owning this problem statement and driving towards a solution. I think as an external partner, be it at the system integration level or the component integration level, you only have so much influence. You can assist, you can support, but you cannot truly solve something that is somewhere in some factory floor or in some device that is not owned by you. So we've seen biggest successes if there is commitment at a level where really that company is willing to really put in resources to drive the project. That's I feel the requirement that I have, and then I think what we've seen also, and Mark mentioned this already. In many cases, this solution finding phase is then a very iterative process where you need to take a first step, you need to do a first sort of proof of concept. And with that, you can then learn about your own requirements in a much more structured and organized way. And only at a later stage, you truly understand what you actually need. and then you need to adjust your solution accordingly. I would say, from our experience, typically it can take 2 years, give or take, from early contact all the way to having a solution that is actually deployed in mass production. Just as some rough number. Your mileage may vary, of course, but that's a sort of a timeline we've seen over and over again.
Okay, that's useful to hear. So I want to move on to implementation in a second, but just to sort of summarize what I was hearing from that, some key points: identify a champion, or champions. Go in with your eyes open and be prepared to change course slightly, because it's an iterative process, and the partnership discussion and dynamic is the thing that seems to really kind of yield the results. So thinking about, we've won the business case, the system is going in. What are the common challenges that businesses face when they're implementing machine vision systems? Mark, can we start with you?
Well, I then think I touched on it earlier, is that hopefully you've addressed this, but if you haven't addressed it, the problem will be is the expectations about how do you validate the system. So many times I've seen a difference of opinion from the integrator and the customer. The integrator says, well, we've done exactly what you've asked, and the customer says, yeah, but actually these are the real, this hasn't solved my problem. So again, that's where a framework such as VDMA 2632 has basically how you're going to test the system. So both sides agree this is how we are going to prove, is it a success or not? So there's no finger pointing to say, well, actually your system doesn't work, and the other person says, well, you've moved the goalpost. Have those goalposts fixed and work together to evolve it and sort it. So you have to work. It has to be a collaborative process. I think that's been mentioned by everyone here. Has to be collaborative. If it's we're going to give you an order and you're going to deliver me a vision system, and by the way, I haven't got any time to actually give you the information that you need to be successful, and then you're just setting them up ready to be told, well, it's not working and I'm not going to pay you. And that I've heard so many times, because the requirement, therefore the price is less. The requirement's not defined, the price is less, the customer's unhappy. But you can do it in another way and be very successful and have a great partnership.
Okay, Paul, I could see you nodding there. Actually, you've obviously been at the sharp end of some of those discussions.
I've been bitten. I can say I've been bitten a few times. Customer expectation, management of that, but collaboration, a good relationship with the customer is really important. If you can get that trust at the beginning, get them to understand that you've got their best interests at heart, it's trying to take their money. The specification writing is so important. I think building up a good relationship, doing the specification writing is probably key here, really.
And Frederick, from a FRAMOS perspective, any kind of things you insist on or look for in terms of using partners?
Yeah, it's this expectation management. I think that needs to be tabled and discussed early on. And I think the key word here is end-to-end, that really one discusses from, well, it's these and these components, how are they integrated, how do they speak to the rest of the system, what is the data output looking like? It's really looking at this end-to-end that needs to be done, and clear accountabilities need to be set. So what does the company do internally? What would they like to outsource to a system integrator here, for instance, like Scorpion Vision with Paul, that there is a clear understanding who delivers what part of the solution and how do all the different building blocks come together to form the solution at the system level. This is, I think, where clear communication from the beginning is key, and that takes time. People need to go this extra mile. That can, just like Mark said earlier, they can't expect that just by placing a PO it will solve their problem. It's the communication around which is truly key.
Okay. Now, obviously, we know these systems come into live environments a lot of the time where there's already existing systems in place. and obviously data is the thorny issue that kind of keeps us all very, awake at night with terms of how good is it, how does it integrate, how kind of obsolete does it become. Tell me about that side of the implementation process. Paul, I mean, any thoughts on integration with the existing systems and data quality as well?
I think it's probably a really broad topic, actually, like everything we've been talking about here. I think in terms of implementation, I think it's really important to use industry standards. Mark's mentioned a few times about the VDMA 2632. It's really key. If you're going to look at a machine vision system that somebody else put in a number of years ago, if they've used the GIGI vision standard, your life becomes a bit easier. So using industry standards. Don't use black box solutions. Use something that you can have a look in the software to see what's going on is key. And it's also worth. Just take the opportunity to mention Automate UK's new Vision Integrator standard, which is following. It's promoting the VDMA 2632 machine vision standard as well. So I think as I say, it's a very broad discussion. But those are the couple of points I'd like to raise there.
Okay. And in terms of those existing systems, are there any that we know are kind of red flags? I mean, you mentioned about kind of, the standardization issue is obviously something that we cover a lot. And I know this is a big industry issue at the moment, but are there other areas where you've routinely seen problems emerging? Mark?
I think the thing is you've got the vision standards. Okay, yep. GIGI was mentioned always with that, but I'm thinking more vision out to the rest of the system. Yep. So here, historically, you've got the various PLCs. Normally, if we go back, it's a very old system, then PLCs almost aren't there, and it's digital I/O and stuff like that. Assuming we're in the PLC area, you've got a number of standards, Ethernet, IP, Profibus and all of that. So you need to integrate into another system. That's also a big challenge sometimes because it's going to need information and working with another company that's doing the implementation. But there's a new standard that's coming through called OPC UA. And there's OPC UA is like the unified communication from a device like a vision system right the way up to the ERP system, such that the defects can get logged, the production building on the manufacturing process could log how many defects, what they are, is there a common trait, so there can be analysis. So with OPC UA, again, VDMA created what's called a companion specification, and there's also one for robotics as well, which effectively defines the data types and sets that come from a vision system that can get communicated with these other devices. And this the big world here is called Industry 4.0. We've heard that buzzword a long time. Big companies are working with that. The smaller companies aren't working with that. So I think it's very much in its early phases. But yeah, trying to implement to legacy systems is obviously a big pain point because it's an unknown. Is the person that wrote that interface on the other side, on the control system to the machine available or not? But I do think OPC and stuff like that is becoming. You can Google that. It's an industry worldwide standard, and most vision systems now or vision system softwares have an OPC UA plugin, which then makes it very easy if someone wants to do data analysis of the results, wants to feed it into something else, it becomes global, cloud-based. It allows you to put information into the cloud. So yeah.
And Frederick, from your perspective, I mean, do you see any particular systems or data issues that you would say people really need to be aware of before they start this project or projects like this?
I think Paul and Mark have covered the essentials there. Trying to work with existing standards is certainly a very good approach. I'd like to add another perspective maybe to this. So in terms of technical barriers, in general, of course, whenever you implement such a solution, one of the technical challenges is that you need to test it. You need to actually deploy it, and typically you need to do this in a real life environment, right? In order to make sure that it actually works. This is quite costly. You need to either build up another line, or you need to actually pause a line that is currently in production and test your system there. And we are clearly seeing that there is a new trend where people are trying to simulate the behavior of the system, starting from the sort of maybe the detection accuracy of of your camera, all the way to how the data is transmitted to other parts of the solution, that they are simulating this. So really creating a digital twin as much as possible upfront to test most of the use cases. And I understand that there is fundamental sort of limitations to simulations, but with the available compute power these days, this is becoming an option as we speak. Big companies are investing into this more and more. So I do expect that this simulation side of things, creating a digital twin of a system before actually deploying it in a real life scenario, is something we will see more and more.
Mark, thoughts on that?
Yeah, Frederick hit on a golden nugget, a digital twin, and I've been working with, on various EMVA conferences. There's been a lot of presentations, certainly from the Fraunhofer Institute, about how digital twins can be used in machine vision. And in fact, at the Vision Show this year, I was on the startup board, sort of doing a voting of which new startups, and one of the winners was a company that really has got to the stage where they can create models of the various cameras, lenses and everything, and the optics and all of that kind of stuff, such that you can start to do digital twins. When I first heard this from the Fraunhofer 4, 5, 6 years ago, I'm thinking that's the effort to create this is a great idea, but is it ever going to have reality? And for the first time this year, I actually started to see that that's not too far away. And this startup company is actually working with the different manufacturers now to actually create the models of all the devices. So literally, you're going to be able to sort of design your system as in a digital environment, which in theory, not proven yet, but in theory could go a long way to reducing effort.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, some of these things become topics of discussion and debate, and then in time, they actually become things that you can actually see being used in the real world. I wanted to ask about sort of some of the frequently asked questions that you get asked by clients or partners about implementation of machine vision processes, and systems. Are there any general ones that you feel always crop up? Maybe
cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the ROI, right? Yeah.
I mean, actually, people don't really understand what they're asking for, is what I find. So they'll come to us and say, "I want a camera that does this." Well, actually, you don't want a camera. You want a completely fully fledged automation system that sorts that for you. And I think I don't know if people really understand if they're saying it's a camera they need because they think the cost of a camera is X versus the work that goes into an automation system with all the testing and benchmarking and trialing that has to go on. I don't really know sometimes whether people really appreciate that. So there's quite a big conversation at the beginning, many times.
Okay. Frederick, what about from your perspective? Anything that often crops up in sort of early scoping conversations or the implementation side?
Yeah, I think sort of a different perspective to what Paul has just said. Often customers have the expectation to receive a plug-and-play system that just you put in and it solves the problem. And admittedly, we are not there. At least we as a company, we typically are not yet able to provide this kind of solution. We are certainly having this as a target. So we try to make the user experience as simple and as nice as possible. But there is no one-size-fits-it-all solutions. All our customers have different, maybe similar applications, but then the context is usually always different because each company works differently, has different constraints. So there's always some tuning, some modification required. And this is, I think, then something that needs to be discussed. This is more a general statement. I think on the more technical, in the more technical domain, if I needed to select a single item that is the most sort of underestimated in terms of complexity, then it's optics. In what we see, optics is often, so the impact of the optical subsystem onto the performance of the overall solution, that is typically underestimated by customers, often also because people don't have any education, any training in optics. And that's, I think, where really experienced people also, for instance, like Paul and his team, we really need to go the extra mile. Also, we at FRAMOS, we invested quite heavily into our optics expertise to really solve this pain for our customers. And then next to optics, I think it's this embedded computing that we see, where we see processing power is becoming more and more available and cheaper. You have your smartphones, right, that already offer a really good processing power for the energy and the money you spend. And people are looking at this and are trying to use these kinds of technologies, are trying to shrink the footprint of their systems as much as possible. But then once you go into this embedded domain, trying to utilize embedded compute platforms to do AI on the edge, this is essentially what's driving people there. This is very, very difficult to really master this at higher volumes. You need to get access to the chipset. You need to get access to the tool set of the vendor. You need to be able maybe to also get access to the image signal processor in order to tune the image. And for that, you typically need partners. Customers can't, according to our experience at least, very rarely, or they need a decent size of a company and of a team to really master this game. Yet they want to do it, and usually this is where then partner companies are required, where strategic collaboration with SoC vendors are needed to get access to these embedded compute platforms and get really the best out of it.
And Mark, do you agree with that? And is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I do. I think you've also got to understand the food chain of the vision markets. You've got the component people, and quite often you get these companies come along and say, "Have you got a vision system that does this?" Okay, and the answer is, "I have a vision system that could be made to do that." Then you've got the system integrators that will analyze it and create it. And then you've got the companies that have chosen a vertical area. Quite often they've come out of system integration where they've sorted a solution out and they've created a product that addresses a particular vertical and that might be seal inspection. Back in the day, it was CD inspection and things like that, or surface inspection. And these companies then effectively, the idea there is they've done the integration once, often got it paid for by a company. They see that there's lots of other companies that will need that, and they do it. But still, it's still customization, because as Patrick said, there's a lot of the systems at the back end are going to be different. The data requirements are going to be different. It's going to be different. But the point is, you're not reinventing the wheel. And that's the holy grail for a system integrator is to identify the project that you can go cut paste 25 times and then not sell it necessarily any cheaper to the customer, maybe a bit lower, but then you can be more profitable on doing it. And that still is so, number one, there's so many applications that haven't been addressed and haven't been identified as scaling. As an entrepreneur, there's huge opportunities of finding these magic sweet spot products and developing them. And I know, talking with Paul over many years, finding one of those and getting the repeats. And I think you've done that a few times, Paul. You've been able to hit a certain segment and actually get.
We're always going to be millionaires by Christmas, Rodney.
Absolutely. Another month.
So yeah. So look, we're in the final sort of 5-10 minutes of the webcast. I wanted to ask a couple of, one specific question, one very general question. I'll go with the specific one while we're still talking about implementation. None of this works without people, right? How do companies focus on employee training and change management when they are implementing a vision system? Is it universally good, bad, or what would you advise companies to think about with some of this this kind of project work? Paul, do you want to? I'll try.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite questions. That is because it's often underestimated how important it is to bring people along with you. So, we'll go to a customer site. There'll be lots of people on the production line doing things with their hands. And, the supervisor checking in there says, please don't talk about the vision system. That might make these people redundant. The reality is they're not going to be very redundant. They'll be deployed to do other things, or they'll be upskilled. So it's starting right at that point before we even actually talk about a proposal or a specification is key. But I think, for me, the most important thing is education, getting people on board, bringing them with you, getting a champion on site. Those for me are really key points.
Yeah. Okay, Frederick, in your experience, what is this something companies do well routinely?
No. Well, do they do it well? I think usually they are trying, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So many companies are doing this for the first time, so they lack experience. Change management in general is something, I think there is no master recipe for that. There is certain things you need to be aware of, and then you need to find your own implementation. I think the one thing I would like to add, what Paul said, is that you should also be clear from the beginning on what to expect from the vision system, but also what not to expect. So what it can do, but also what it can't do, to also be clear that the vision system has its limitation, and that people are also not expecting too much from it. Also, that will lead to frustration.
And Mark?
I have seen many a time where management have put wanting to put a system in, and the people on the production floor aren't engaged, and that is an uphill battle, even to the level of sabotage on the system. Okay, and getting that right and creating an environment where, in those early stages, they can bring, and this is not for the integrator, this is the company, and I've seen it so many times, that they that literally the system isn't going to succeed. The system might work, but because you haven't got buy-in by the people, it gets turned off, the camera gets knocked, it gets defocused, happens because they are fearful of it. And we know automation generates jobs, just different types of jobs, and people can get redeployed. And companies that understand and have a good internal culture, it's not a problem. But companies that don't have that, and that's one of the things that I haven't actually done system integration like Paul has, but that would be a red flag in a way, depending who I'm going to work with, would be, what's this company's internal dynamics like? Because I think you can get two companies have the same problem, one will succeed and one won't succeed because of their culture.
It's fascinating. I mean, it seems so obvious when you say it, but I imagine it's almost bottom of the list for a lot of organizations when they're first approaching these sort of projects in terms of how to prioritize and what. Paul?
People, I think it's easy to forget that people have day jobs and they've got their own stresses and strains in their work. They're not thinking in the same frame of mind that we are. It's turning them around and adjusting that culture. It's taken me 20 years to work this out. I'm still learning, but it's really important.
It's always about
I would say, Paul, is, I don't know if you've noticed it, it's quite enlightening when you see at the beginning of a project, there's the person that's absolutely negative, the real difficult one in the customer, and they come out at the end being your best advocate, best promoter, when they were literally disruptive at the beginning. And that actually, personally, when that's happened to me, there's something quite nice that you've taken someone on a journey and shown them something. And some of these people then start being the best advocate, generating new business for you by referring other things. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Terrific advice there. So I hope everyone's listening to that. Find the most difficult person in the room, win them over, and the project will work. That's a brilliant
easy like
that. Right, we are nearly out of time. I'm just going to close, if I may, with one final question. And it's a general one again, as you would expect us to end with. We know machine vision is everywhere now, increasingly. Where are the best examples of where these systems can make the greatest bottom line impact? Any kind of quick fire responses to that very broad question again?
Agriculture.
Okay.
And specifically for us, we're not doing stuff in the fields. That's too difficult, and I think we're miles away from that being successful, but profitable rather. But pack house, in pack houses, you've got lots and lots of people trimming vegetables, doing things. Very, very labor intensive and very expensive. And there's a lot of money to be saved there, a lot of work to be done.
Okay, brilliant. Frederick? Any
I agree
disagreement
with I agree with the smart agriculture. That's definitely something where I feel we all have high hopes, although the mass deployment hasn't happened yet, but I think we will see some pickup there in the next couple of years. There was some good groundwork done or is currently done. In addition, I think what we've also seen is a new sort of a new market that we internally call mapping or digital twinning, where cameras are being used to map out our environment. And people are very creative about specific use cases, be it to map out construction sites or be it for in the real estate domain, where also workflows that traditionally either were not possible or only possible with in a very labor intensive way, that these are being automated. Creating a digital twin of our world, I think, is what's behind this. And I feel this is also something, especially then coupled with AR, augmented reality, is something we'll see more in the next decade.
Okay, and Mark, you're voting for agriculture.
So I think obviously if we stick in the manufacturing world, then I think they are very good examples of where things are going. Historically, it's been pharma, medical, stuff like that. But I would actually sort of hybrid across here from one in the non-manufacturing, and this is creating new business models. So sports entertainment is a massively growing area where you don't even know the vision systems there. If you go to Flight Club or Top Golf or one of these gaming things, you go have a great night out. It creates an environment for you. The technology is immersive. It allows you to, there's soccer social in on the O2. All these different companies are using vision to create new experiences for people. We have a lot of leisure time. That's a big growing area. And the clever bit is finding the next thing that people are going to really enjoy and do it. And the vision is immaterial. And what's also nice about those companies is their business is not vision. Their business is food, beverage, entertainment. Okay, so having a good partner that does the technology can be a really good good link. And actually, there's huge opportunities. But you've got to try them. You've got to find someone that understands food, beverage, and all that, and partner with them and do it. So I think manufacturing, field, vegetables, all of that sort of stuff is massive, and also sports entertainment. It all started with Sky and Hawkeye and all that sort of stuff, but it's far bigger than that now.
Great, terrific. Well, look, it leaves it with me to say thank you to our three panelists. That was a really interesting debate. I got some great takeaways from that, and I hope the audience did too. Obviously, there are more of these webcasts coming up. Have a look on our site, Imaging and Machine Vision Europe, and you will see the next ones that are coming off the block. And thanks again. This will be available on demand for up to a year. So if you want to share this with colleagues, please do. So thank you, Frederick, thank you, Mark, and thank you, Paul, and thank you to the audience for watching today. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks for organising.
Everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.